welcome to my channel Auzura. If you've spent your whole life in the United States, you've been told in 1,000 small ways that your system is basically the best available. The healthcare could be better, sure, but it's freedom. The work hours are long, but that's hustle. The tipping is confusing, but that's just how it works. Then you spend serious time in Australia, and you start noticing things. Not the beaches, not the accent, the structural things, the quiet everyday systems that make you go, wait, why don't we do it this way? This video covers 10 of them, things Australia genuinely gets right, that Americans consistently say hit them differently once they experience them in real life. And then at the end, 3 things that still make absolutely no sense to me because no country bats 1,000. Let's go. The first time an American visits a GP in Australia and pays nothing, they sometimes ask the receptionist if they've misunderstood something. Under Medicare Australia's public healthcare system, a standard GP visit costs nothing. No copay, no deductible, no insurance card to fumble with at the desk. You show your Medicare card, you see a doctor, you leave. The thing that Americans find hardest to process isn't the lack of payment, it's the absence of the decision. In the US, deciding whether to go to the doctor involves a small financial calculation every single time. Is this bad enough? Will insurance cover it? Which urgent care is in-network? In Australia, that calculation doesn't happen. You're sick, you go. I spoke to an American expat in Brisbane who'd lived there for 3 years. She said the thing she noticed most wasn't any single appointment. It was the mental overhead that disappeared. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I stopped. Australia isn't a perfect system. Wait times in the public system can be long for specialists, and private health insurance is a whole other conversation. But for basic primary care, the floor is just different. Australia's minimum wage sits above AUD $23 per hour as of 2024. It gets adjusted annually. Service workers, baristas, waitstaff, retail workers are paid an actual wage, not a base designed to be supplemented by tips. Which means tipping in Australia is genuinely optional. Not optional, the way it is in America, where not tipping is a social crime. Actually optional. You can round up if you had a great experience, you can leave nothing and feel completely fine about it. Most Australians do exactly that. Americans visiting Australia for the first time often find this disorienting in a way they don't expect. The muscle memory is too strong. A table of American tourists will add 20% automatically, and the server will look mildly surprised. The flip side is that when you're on the other end of it, when you're the person being paid, there's a dignity to it. Your income isn't contingent on the mood or the generosity of whoever sat down at your table that night. Full-time workers in Australia are legally entitled to 4 weeks of paid annual leave per year. That's the minimum, not the generous company offer, not the aspirational HR policy, the legal floor. And here's the thing that makes this different from just having leave on paper. Australians are expected to use it. Taking your leave is normal. Not taking it is mildly concerning. If you're one of those employees who hasn't booked any leave by mid-year, your manager might actually say something not because they're worried about burnout, but because unused leave is a liability on the books, and also because culturally, what are you doing? An American friend who moved to Sydney told me her boss asked her in March to book her leave for the year. She thought it was a formality. She asked if it was mandatory. He genuinely didn't understand the question. Australian workplaces have a cultural allergy to visible status. From day one, you call your boss by their first name. Not because it's a startup, not because the company culture deck told you to be informal, just because that's how it's done. Calling someone Mr. Walsh when you mean Pete is going to create a slightly awkward pause. This runs deeper than just first names. The social convention around rank in Australian workplaces is that you don't perform it. A senior executive who walks around making sure everyone knows they're a senior executive is going to register as a bit much. The expectation is that competent people do their work, and their authority is functional, not ceremonial. For Americans used to navigating office politics with careful attention to who's impressing whom, this can feel disorienting at first, then usually quite good. Australia has something called tall poppy syndrome. The idea is that the tallest poppy in the field is the one that gets cut. It's a critique of self-promotion, of anyone who positions themselves as superior or exceptional. This has a downside. Australia can be slow to celebrate genuine achievement. But in the social register, it creates something quite pleasant. People at dinner parties and barbecues tend to talk about things, not credentials. In America, the first 5 minutes of a new social situation often involves a resume exchange. What do you do? Where do you work? Where did you go to school? The answers establish the pecking order. Everyone knows what's happening, and everyone plays along. In Australia, if you roll into a barbecue and launch into your professional bio unprompted, the room will politely find somewhere else to be. Not rudely, just efficiently. The conversation moves to sport, to where someone's traveling next, to something mildly controversial in the news. The ideas carry more weight than the titles. Australian English has decided that every word is 2 syllables too long and has fixed the problem accordingly. Afternoon is arvo. Sunglasses are sunnies. A service station is a servo. A bottle shop, a liquor store is a bottle-o. A tradesperson is a tradie. Breakfast is brekkie. A biscuit is a bicky. And your friend's friend who you've just met at the pub is already your mate. This isn't just casual vocabulary. It's a social register. The shortening signals warmth. It signals that you're not taking yourself too seriously. It signals that the situation, whatever it is manageable. For outsiders, it takes a few weeks. You'll get told the bathroom is down the back near the dunny and nod while having no idea where you're going. Eventually, you start picking it up. And when you do, you realize the language has been an invitation the whole time. Australia took coffee seriously before serious coffee was a global trend. The flat white now on menus from New York to London was an Australian invention. The standard of espresso-based coffee in even a mid-tier Australian suburb is, genuinely, higher than what you'd find in most American cities, outside of maybe Portland or Manhattan. Walking into a Melbourne cafe and asking for a medium drip will get you a patient and slightly pained look. There's a flat white, a long black, a piccolo, a magic, a cortado. The barista has opinions about milk temperature. This is not performance, they actually care. An American expat I know tried to explain the concept of a pumpkin spice latte to a Melbourne barista in October. The barista listened carefully, then said, "So it's sweet, spiced, milky, and seasonal?" "Yes, we don't really do that, but I can make you a magic, it's our thing." She ordered the magic. She never went back to seasonal lattes. Australian public space is designed under the assumption that people will use it. In parks along Sydney Harbour, along Brisbane's South Bank, in Fremantle, there are free public barbecue grills. You arrive, you press the button, they heat up, you cook. When you're done, you clean up for the next person. There are ocean pools carved into coastal rock, free, maintained, lifeguarded at certain times. There are extensive foreshore trails. There are benches with actual views. This sounds simple, but public space design is a political choice. It reflects what a government thinks citizens deserve access to. In Australia, the answer appears to be good coastline, free cooking facilities, somewhere to sit that isn't a parking lot. The first time an American family arrives at one of these parks expecting to pay for the barbecue access and finds it's free and clean, there's usually a beat of confusion. Then they stay for 3 hours. This one's harder to articulate, but it gets mentioned consistently by Americans who move to Australia. After the Port Arthur massacre in 1996, Australia implemented strict gun control. Automatic and semi-automatic weapons were banned. A buyback collected hundreds of thousands of firearms. In the nearly 30 years since, Australia has had no mass shootings on the scale that America experiences with regularity. That is a specific policy outcome with measurable effects on daily life. What's harder to measure is the psychological effect. Americans who live in Australia often describe, sometimes unprompted, sometimes years later, a reduction in a low-level anxiety they didn't know they were carrying. The sense of bracing slightly in crowded places, the awareness that a school, a shopping center, a cinema is a place where a particular thing could happen. That awareness doesn't fully disappear, nowhere is risk-free, but its weight changes. One family I heard about, from Georgia, had a daughter who came home from her first week at a primary school in Brisbane and told them she hadn't been scared that day. The parents didn't say anything in the moment, but they talked about it afterwards. They'd both been quietly bracing since she started school. They hadn't noticed until she named it. Australians have a distance problem. Specifically, they have no idea how far things are. Australia is roughly the size of the continental United States. It has 26 million people. The result is a country where major cities are genuinely far from each other, where road trips to scenic spots can take 4 hours, and where locals have recalibrated their sense of what counts as close. It's just up the road can mean 45 minutes. It's not that far can mean half a day. A quick drive should be treated as deeply suspect. Ask a Sydney local for a good day trip recommendation, and they'll say, "The Blue Mountains, it's only an hour and a half." They mean it. To them, an hour and a half is basically this takes some adjustment. But there's something quietly appealing about it once you've made the shift. People plan for the journey. They pack food. They stop at places along the way. The destination matters less than the American road trip logic of getting there fast. The distance is built into the experience. Now, the 3 things I genuinely cannot explain, not criticisms designed to seem balanced. 3 things where Australia's internal logic escapes me entirely. Walk into an ordinary suburban pub in New South Wales or Queensland on a Tuesday afternoon. Order a beer. Look around. Somewhere to your right, there is almost certainly a room full of poker machines. Not in a casino, not in a special gaming district, in a normal pub, accessible, humming, available for anyone who walks in. Australia has some of the highest poker machine losses per capita in the world. It's a significant social problem gambling rates, the concentration of machines in lower income areas, the design of the machines to maximize time spent, campaigns to reform it come and go. The political will seems hard to sustain. It's the one area where you look at Australian policy and think, this doesn't fit. A country that seems genuinely committed to public welfare has somehow ended up with slot machines in its pubs, shrugging. Australia, between 2010 and 2022, had 7 prime ministers. 7 in 12 years. Not through elections, mostly through internal party coups. A sitting prime minister would be challenged by their own party, replaced, and the country would simply have a new leader without having voted for one. This happened to Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard, Tony Abbott, Malcolm Turnbull. It became so regular that Australian political journalists had a specific vocabulary for it. The spill, the leadership challenge. They're moving against him, the certainty of instability. From the outside, watching a country that functions remarkably well at the everyday level continuously destabilize its own national leadership is genuinely confusing. Australia's median house price in Sydney has reached points where the ratio of house price to annual income is among the worst in the developed world. A country that prides itself on egalitarianism, on a fair go, on the idea that if you work hard, you get to participate, has housing costs that price working people out of the cities where the work is. The gap between Australia's self-image sunburnt, laid-back, egalitarian, and the reality of what it takes to buy a house in Sydney or Melbourne is real and widening. Younger Australians know it. It's the one topic where the breezy confidence that things will work out seems genuinely under pressure. So, 10 wins, 3 genuine puzzles. The wins aren't coincidences. They're choices. Policy choices, cultural choices. Things that got built over decades because someone decided they mattered. And the puzzles are 2 things that persist because changing them is politically complicated, or because the money involved makes reform slow. No country has figured all of this out. But some of the choices Australia has made, especially around what daily life should feel like for ordinary people, are worth looking at seriously. Here's the question I'll leave you with. If you moved to Australia tomorrow, which one of these 10 things would hit you the hardest in week 1? And which one of the 3 puzzles would you find yourself arguing about at a dinner party 6 months in? Put your answers in the comments. I genuinely want to know where people land on this, especially if you've already made the move.